Hey everybody, it's Andrew Brown, and welcome to the AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp, where I'm going to help you, I'm going to help all of us solve our time zones issues. And this is a thing that might be affecting some users prematurely than I was expecting. So when we implemented our date times in our application, I knew that it wasn't a perfect implementation and that I would carefully look at it later when it actually mattered. But however, there was a side effect of not doing the implementation 100% correctly the first time around. I only discovered that on an office hour call where I saw for one of our boot campers that when they were trying to create a message in DynamoDB, it was inserting it into the middle of the conversation, and so it looked like the message wasn't being created. So we definitely have to solve this time zone issue ASAP. If you're in the DynamoDB week, you should be doing it when you're doing the create message. If it's later down the road and you got past DynamoDB, you just need to solve this problem. So the thing is that I spent some time and I figured out an implementation, and it's over here on week 5 time zones. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and do it again on screen so you can follow along and get the code in place working. So what I want to do is create a new branch. You do not create branches. You just go ahead and work in your main. I'm going to go here. I'm going to branch off of week 5 again. I know this is back in time where I'm actually way ahead here, but I'm just trying to pick a point to reference here. So I'm going to say week 5 time zones again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and create that branch, and I'll go back over to our code here. We will go to that branch here, open it up, and we're going to leave week 5 time zones open because I have the commit here. It's, whoops, we'll go back here. If we go to commits down here, why is it not showing it to me here? Am I crazy? So we're here, right? And I want to see my commits. Let me just refresh this here. It's not 2 weeks ago. What if we click? Yeah, 52 commits. Commit. It says done DynamoDB. Where are they? They're definitely here. I don't know why it's messing with me here today. Commits here. What the heck? Come on, people. Has recent pushes 5 minutes ago. Oh, maybe we're on time zone again, and that's my confusion. Sorry. We'll click on this time zones, and then we'll click on this. There we go. And we have fixing time zone stuff. So there's some stuff in here that just documents stuff, but I'm not really interested in that. What I want to do is start grabbing some of this code. I created this datetime test endpoint. You don't need to do that. You just need to follow along with my implementation here. So this is now time zone again. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch this environment. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll give it a moment to launch. I'll be back here when it's loaded, okay? All right, so our environment is up here. And so, there's going to be a few changes we need to make. And so really what I found out was the fact that we were doing a bunch of this stuff that wasn't required. So when we do datetime.now, like when I work with web frameworks, it's very often that you have to do this kind of translation of date times. And so what we wanted it to be was in an ISO 8601 format. And it turns out that when we do datetime.now, it already returns it as that as a UTC. And so that's why we were able to simplify this here. But anyway, when we're trying to solve, this stuff, I actually have in here in the journal, and it's only in this branch, by the way, if we go to week 5 here. With time zones, with web apps, there's a lot of stuff you have to determine. So what format is the Postgres database being stored in? How does the PG driver, whatever we're using to make the connection, handle the inputs and outputs? What's the format of the DynamoDB table that is being stored? Does the system machine have, does that time zone matter? Does Flask set a time zone? Do we need to translate the time zone for Python before serving? What does Python do to date times converted to a string for API calls? What format do we need to serve the date time to the endpoint? What does Luxon library expect for the date time? So there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that can happen along the way. And so I had to go piece by piece and figure it out. And so doing some research, and I've seen this stuff before, but I just don't ever keep it in my head. But the idea is with Postgres, you can store things as a timestamp or a timestamp Z. And they really want you to do it in this format, which is just UTC. You don't store any time zone information, which is here. And even if you do store a time zone Z, it still stores it as UTC and does the translation for you. But for legacy apps, they do that. They might use timestamp Z, but you really just want to use timestamp because it's a lot easier if everything's just UTC and you do the translation. And so this is what it looks like, and that would be the timestamp with UTC. So going down here a little bit here, and they say in Postgres, you don't want to use UTC. If we want to see what our time zone is in Postgres, we could run show time zone, and by default it's set to UTC. It's not uncommon to have to set the time zone for your database, but again, better to leave it as UTC if you can. SciCop or SciCo PG, the thing that we use to connect to Postgres, it apparently relies on the connection info time zone, which is an underlying thing for Python time zone info. But this is only if you're using the timestamp Z. So we're not using that. So it's not going to be doing anything of the sort with it. And so basically, it's going to return back as an ISO 8601 with the UTC as basically this. Like that's what we'll get back from Postgres. So that rules out another thing. Another thing I found out was like, well, what is the browser? So this is something that's nice that you can do. You can go here, and even in this page, it doesn't matter where, and we can just see what time zone we're using, because this matters on the JavaScript side when we look at that there. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on here, but we will work through the code here, which is right here. So, there's a few places where we need to update the code. The first is our seed data. So what I'll do is I'll go over to our backend Flask application here. It's in here and in our bin directory. At least here in the future, if you're doing Fargate, your bin directory is going to be up a level directory, so you'll have to adjust it based on that. So we'll go into DDB. We'll go into the seed here, and in here we have some of the stuff here. So we don't need to do all this thing here. We just take that out like that. Same thing we call date time somewhere else. I think actually that's the only place that we call it. And so let's go back to our code here. So there's that. Another thing that I did was when we create the message group, I put it back a day in time, just because, actually this is for messages, because when we have the messages, we'll end up going back into the future and we'll end up with negative time, which doesn't make sense. So for our messages, we'll just change that time delta to always be offset by at least a day. So I'll just say here minus time delta days equal 1. So I'll minus a day out there. And then here we want to make sure that's an ISO format. It is set up here. I mean, it's slightly different, but it will produce the exact same thing. So it doesn't really matter here. Yeah, so that will pass that as ISO format, which will be that ISO 8601, which is what we want as our format, okay? So that one's pretty simple. For our seed data, there was an error. This is like an old one. This is for, I fix this in the future, but if you haven't fixed this, you should probably fix it. So I'm just going to go to my seed data here in our SQL. If I can find it anywhere here, where are you? seed.sql. And I'm just going to fix that there. There should be a comma instead of that. Down below here, we have an interval of 10 days. So that's 10 days prior. That's totally fine. We'll leave that alone. I did consider changing that, but I didn't. In our ddb.py, that's another place where we're doing this weird translation. So let's just go fix that. ddb.py. And if we just go here, that is date time now. So that one looks fine there. It's probably one on the create message. Yeah, so we don't want to be doing all this. So I'll just take all this out here like that. And that will fix that issue there. We could even just say created on here. Keep it nice and simple. So that's resolved. We should make sure we are connected to local DynamoDB. Mine just happens to be at this point in time not, so I'll just flip that out there. That's a small issue. And then we have a bunch of JavaScript stuff to do. So what I did was I ended up creating this JavaScript file in the lib directory that allows us to, where is it? Here it is, the datetime.js formats. And so this is going to just make it a lot easier for us to manage times. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the contents of this. We'll make this in our source lib datetime formats directory. So in our front end here, I'm going to go into source lib. I'm going to call this datetime format.js. Paste this in. I believe that's what I called this file. So I'll go back here, datetime formats. Let's just make sure it matches the same. And so we have a few functions here. These were already in our code base. I just abstracted them out. But the major change that we did is this from ISO. So our issue that we were having, if I go back over to our source, like anything like activities, let's just say message item here. So in here, we had them over here. And the problem is that we're doing from ISO without setting it as UTC. And so what it was doing was it was treating this as if it was the local time zone. And so it wasn't, obviously, it's UTC. So what we do is we say from ISO, and to understand that this is UTC, and then from there, we are going to convert it over to use the local time or the time zone of the browser. So we ran this earlier in our browser to show how we could get the local time zone. And so that is the major difference there. And then we repeat that for, I'm gonna take this console log out here, for the same lines here. But these three functions we do end up using multiple times. So I just refactored it out by removing this function here. So what we do here is we'll just import this line. So we have an import for message items. So there's a line up here that we want, this one here. And we'll replace Luxon. This is for message item. And then down below, we want to just replace this. So this one is for the created at time ago. So this is going to be format date time. And this one is message time ago. So that is one of them. Okay. We need to do this also on our message group JS item. So very similar. We'll go ahead and grab that line again. It's going to be message time ago as well for that one. And then we'll go down below here. We'll say message time ago. Well, that's actually, sorry, this is format date time, because that's just going to give us a nice readable message. And this will be message, what was it called? Time ago, yep, time ago. So we have it there. We also need to do this in our actual our activity item. So that's another place where we're doing this. It's in the content. Okay, and so this one is pretty similar with the exception that we're just using the regular at time here. So if we go up to not message group item, activity content, then we'll bring in this here. We'll go down below, and here it's format, or so this will be time ago, and this one will just be format date time. Okay, and so we'll go to the top here, and so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this out, because these are old, we don't need them anymore. And so that will clean that up a bunch. Let's make sure they're deleted out of the other one. So activity item is fine. Message group item, do we have it up here? We'll get rid of this one. It's just taking up space. We'll go to message item. Yeah, we'll get rid of that one that's taking up space as well. Okay, we'll go back here, just take a look here. I think I did change some things in message item as well, because in the content here, or the message item, I don't have the links on here. It's really supposed to be on the div. So I'm just going to go down a line here and just copy that, and we will just paste that in there. We'll take off this part here. This really should be a div. So we'll switch that out to be a div. We'll go up here and we'll say link. Okay, and there is some CSS we need to fix as well, because some of these have been moved around. So we really want the message item avatar to have these things on it instead. I think that's all I really did change in there. Let's double check on that. For the CSS there. message item CSS. Yeah, that's all that was changed there. So those are pretty clear. And I think that's more or less everything. I think we got it all. So let's go make sure this app is working correctly. I'm going to go ahead and say like, well, let's make sure it works, and then I can just have this as a single commit. So we'll go up here, we'll type in clear. We need to start things up. So I'll go ahead and just do a Docker compose up. And we'll just wait a little while. I'll be back here in a second, okay? All right, so our application should be up and running here. We do have to seed our data. So we'll go back over here and we'll do our, we'll make sure we're in the backend class. That's where our bin directory is here at least. And what I'm gonna do is do a bin db setup. Oops, clear. Drag this over. Increase the size here. A bin db setup. Okay, so that almost works. There is one little bug in that file. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fix it. That is in setup here. If I go down below, this is supposed to be changed to that, but I'll also just manually run it because that last one just didn't run. You can put Python or you can just leave it blank there and it'll still work. So we'll do bin db, was it update cognito? Update cognito. And so that will complete that portion of it. I'm gonna go bin ddb, schema load. We'll do the seeds. There we go. And so hopefully our data will look something normal. So I'll go back over to our application. We'll take a look here. We don't see anything right now. That's okay. Let's go take a look at what the issue is. I'll go ahead and inspect. Might be getting a 500 error or something else. We'll give this a nice refresh here. A 500 is okay. I don't mind 500s. It is hanging. Hanging is not a good indicator. It normally means that there's contention to connect to something. So maybe we are not using production and we're using development for something. I'll just scroll on down here. We are using that endpoint. Are we using the production one? No, we're using local. So there shouldn't really be an issue for contention in this case for me. I'm going to make sure that we can see exactly what the issue is. Format time expires that is not defined. That actually is a JavaScript side error. That has nothing to do with server side. So maybe we forgot to do something. This is in our activity content. So I'll go here to activity content. We don't usually see hanging on the client side very often, so I'm actually curious about that. Content, there it is. And so here, no, there's nothing wrong there. So maybe what we'll do is check out the front end. Maybe something didn't compile correctly. Well, we do have the set cognito errors, which we do resolve later on when we do deployment, but I'm not really worried about that right now. What I'm worried about is our stuff compiling. So it says that error, format times expired not defined, line 12. Well, I thought that wasn't there. Line 12, oh, we missed one. Format time expires, this is the ago, so we'll say time ago. I thought we had that. And I guess there's one up here as well. So we will go here and we'll just say format date time. I spelled that right. And so I guess we're just missing one here. And one error, still having an error though. This is like a superficial error. I'm not going to worry about that right now. As long as it compiles, we're fine. So there we go. So let's look at the time here. It says -3 minutes ago. Well, it says 2:21 p.m. What is my time right now? My time is 2:24, so that is pretty accurate. But that was 3 minutes ago in the past. Not exactly doing exactly what I want. This is April 15th, 2:21, so that is fine. 9 days from now, since we said it will expire in 10 days. So pretty accurate, well, because it's less than 10 days, so technically it will happen in 9 days. It's more like 9 plus something. Maybe it could be a little bit more intelligent and round up to the closest date, but that could be something we can fix later on. I'm more concerned about this -3 minutes because really it's just, it happened 3 minutes ago. It's not in the negative. So this has to do with this here. So maybe there's a problem with our code. I'm just going to bump this down here. We have a message time ago and then time ago. The only thing is that future to now. Well, anyway, let's just proceed forward and log in and see what else there is. But when I was doing this earlier, I wasn't getting negatives. Capital T, testing 1, 2, 3, or maybe I just didn't notice. It's just in reverse. That's the only problem. So we'll go over to our messages here. This is 4 minutes ago, so that is accurate. We'll click into that. This is 22 hours ago. That's fine. We will send a new message. Hello, this is new. We'll hit message. We'll see if it works. Go down to the bottom. Here it is, 0 minutes ago. So that is accurate. So this is no longer a problem. That was the major thing we wanted to solve. I'm curious why this is in the -5 ml or minutes ago. And it just has to do with this math here. So when we calculate for the message time ago here, up here, you see created and then now, but down below here, this is future and then now. So, I mean, we could just flip it and see if that fixes it. Now, future, future, future. And I'll go back up here and we'll refresh. There we go. So it just was backwards. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and say implement time zone fixes. And there you go. So did it not take it all? You got to be kidding me. I hate when it does that. I don't use VS Code to commit my code generally, just for the bootcamp, but that's frustrating when it does that. Anyway, so those commits are now there. I wish it was a single commit for you, but it's not. But anyway, I'll upload this and yeah, get that fixed. No matter if you're on the DynamoDB week or past it, you need to go ahead and do this, okay?